In times of crisis, we need strong leadership. And until January 20, the United States is stuck with sleepy, same old Joe Biden. Now, America is still reeling from an ISIS-inspired terror attack, and the leader of the free world seemed more eager to wrap up a press conference on the incident so he could watch the football.
And we're seeing that today. The Sugar Bowl is back on. Kickoff is going to take off very shortly. If I don't get this damn thing done, we're going to be in real trouble.
Joining me now is filmmaker Ami Horowitz. Ami, thank you so much for your time. I personally thought this was not the right tone at all. In fact, I find it baffling when you've got families planning funerals and the leader of the free world is more interested in football. How do you make sense of that?
Yeah, look, I mean, as you know, I call as I see it, right? And frankly, I'm not sure it's a fair criticism. Let's be honest. I don't think it's fair to say he cares more about football than what's happening. I think his point was, and I read his comments, and I have been as critical of Joe Biden as anybody else. And he was simply saying, look, he wants the football game to happen. He's glad it happened. He wants us to be normalized in terms of the way we are living our lives. You know, the whole adage, not let the terrorists win. I think it's true here. I don't think he was making a comment to say, hey, football is more important, although I'm a huge football fan, so I do love football. But yeah, I don't think it's fair to say he thought it was more important. I just didn't see this particular comment as inappropriate or overstepping. I could be crazy, but I didn't read it as a significant problem.
Well, I disagree. I think the timing and his wording in particular was inappropriate, that sort of the timing right now is not right, and people are looking to leaders during times of crisis, and I think that those comments were wrong and tone deaf. But look, speaking of the terror attack, prior to the incident, Joe Biden and his administration repeatedly stressed that the greatest threat facing the country was white supremacy. Fox News reports, he said, according to the intelligence community, terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today, not ISIS, not al-Qaeda, white supremacists. Now, Ami, these comments were made back in 2021. Obviously, white supremacy is a big issue, but does the West only have itself to blame for turning a blind eye to the threat of Islamic terror? Because this is not a new threat. The West is not next. It's happening to the West now, as it has been for some time.
Yeah, and by the way, Joe Biden made those comments as recently as 2023 when he was at Howard University, and he talked about white supremacy as the most significant threat facing our country. Look, I don't want to downplay the issues of white supremacy. It's a massive issue. It's not nothing. People have been murdered by white supremacists. In fact, look, I went through I do show prep for you, right? I don't just walk in here and make comments willy-nilly. And I went through all the terrorist attacks in the U.S. of the last 5 years, and there have been almost 24 people or actually as much as 24 have been killed by white supremacists over the last 5 years. More people have been killed by Islamic terrorism, many that we don't even remember. There's a whole list of people. I was like, God, I didn't even know about that particular attack. But to gaslight us and say it is the most significant problem that we have had is ridiculous. It's crazy. And by the way, it's not just him. And it's the reason why we have a problem with our, people talk about the deep state and how insane it is that all these quote unquote MAGA supporters don't believe or trust the FBI. The FBI, Department of Justice, has repeatedly echoed those comments about white supremacy, not mentioning the Islamic threat when more people have been killed by Islamic terrorists in the last 5 years than have been killed by white supremacists. Again, not to downplay white supremacy. It is an issue. But look, why are we doing this? Is because we want to have an idea of, hey, we don't want to look at Islamic people or Islam or as a problem in our country. And it's safe and okay to attack white people, white supremacy. This is what this is all about, right? It's racial politics. This attack with ISIS, this is nothing new. In 2024, it was a big year for ISIS. Okay, there have been 6 major attacks that were actually carried out or thwarted. The other thing, by the way, again, talking about how Islamic terrorism not being a massive issue. Again, I did the research. In 2024, over 1,000 people have been killed by Islamic terrorists globally. This is an issue we need to deal with. We haven't been dealing with it because it's not politically correct. And this is one of the reasons why Trump was elected and one of the reasons why Joe Biden is no longer in office. People don't want to play these games anymore, not when lives are at stake. So, yeah, I think it's gaslighting. I think it's gross. And I think it's one of the reasons why we have President Trump. I think that's a great thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that there is some hope that Donald Trump will make changes come January 20. Look, let's move on to other matters. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he's okayed sending in a delegation for talks to Qatar on a hostage ceasefire deal in Gaza. Army, this latest announcement came after reports that the negotiations between Israel and Hamas had reached an impasse. But is this latest news any sort of progress, do you think?
Look, we've had fits and starts with this before, so it's really tough to tell until a deal gets done. I think the more important question is why are we having it now? We haven't had talks in quite a while. I think the answer is obvious. It's the Trump effect. I want to rewind into the inauguration of Ronald Reagan. For over a year, there were American hostages in Iran, and the Carter administration was negotiating for months and months to get them out. We even sent troops in where all of them got killed. Yet, minutes after Ronald Reagan was inaugurated, the hostages were releases. I think that echoes what we see with Donald Trump now. I think, let's not forget that he's already had an effect on foreign policy. Qatar, where the negotiations are happening, they kicked Hamas out as a base. Why? I think it's obvious why. They're afraid of what Trump will do if they're still a haven for Hamas. I think these negotiations are a direct effect. The Hamas saying, look, Trump was clear. He said, if he is president and these hostages are still held by Hamas, there will be hell to pay. Now, with the Biden administration, it was the opposite. He was blaming Israel. He was stopping weapons from going to Israel. Now the tables have turned. Now with Trump in office, Hamas is scared. That's why the negotiations are happening now. Let's make no mistake about it. The Trump effect is clear, it's wide-ranging, and it's certainly having an effect as we see it today with the negotiations in Qatar.
I agree. Army Horowitz, always good to speak with you. Thank you for joining me on the show this evening.
Pleasure is mine.